We are here today with Ja-Mel Vinson, who is going to tell us all sorts of fantastic things about characters who can control shadows, I believe you said.
Yeah, that's not quite all they can do, but that's part of their power sets and their magics. Uh, depending on the story, it's powers and magic. There's a difference between the two. It's not quite it's a, it's a thing that exists. I'm a nerd and I'm like real steeped in comics and everything.
Yeah,
So I'm like there's a difference between these two.
yes.
But like everyone, like fantasy writers use it interchangeably. That's the word. I can't. Oh yeah, I should probably start there. Hi. So I'm Ja-Mel Vinson. I am the debut of am slash was the book's in a bit of a weird place right now. Because it technically was published last year, but I took it down from Amazon so that I could make revisions on it.
Ah, yes, I have done that, so I understand.
But the revisions became an entire second version unto itself. Second edition.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's cool too.
Yeah. I just sent the back half of the book off to my editor yesterday. And she has yet to email me back with a ETA, but she'll probably get to that soon, or she'll start working on it soon or something.
Right.
She'll send it to me eventually. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can have it done and back up on Amazon again by the beginning of April. Beginning of April, mid-April, hopefully. But I'm the author of Dreamer. I don't know if you can see that.
A little too close.
Oops.
Perfect.
Of Dreamer.
I like that. That's cool. So what's Dreamer about?
Oh, we also have a bookmark. I don't know.
I love bookmarks.
Yeah. It says, "Is reality just a dream?"
Oh. Ooh, this will be fun.
Yeah. So, Dreamer is about a girl named Maya Juanita Isadora Hernandez Lilac. She is, as you could probably guess from the name, she is Latina. Her dad's Honduran and her mom's Dutch. And she is the true dreamer. And the true dreamer was inspired by the 90s show Charmed, if you've seen that.
I know of it, but I haven't seen it, although that doesn't mean a lot because my television knowledge is like really bad.
Aw. Well, sorry for all of the tangents and everything that we're jumping into.
Oh, we're good.
This is just kind of how I talk. Eventually, we'll work our way out, maybe, hopefully, maybe. Maybe.
That's the fun part.
This is just me when I talk. When I talk to people, this just happens and it's natural and it's normal. And so much so that I have a name for it, the Titanic effect. Because we can start talking about apples and then end up somehow on the Titanic.
I have done that. Not specifically apples to Titanic, but yeah. No, I definitely do that.
I would love to have a conversation that actually goes from apples to Titanic, but I want to do it in a way that's natural. So that we can just like be like, oh, I guess this somehow happened. Mission fulfilled. I don't want it to be like we try to get there, because if we try to get there, it'll be like the 6 degrees of separation, and I can't. I mean, it basically is the 6 degrees of separation, but I want us to get there naturally, as opposed to like you know when they did like a game, they had like a game show based on it at some point. The 6 degrees of separation.
I didn't know that. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I know the concept, but I'm only in the like conceptual sense.
At some point there was like a game show where like you had to try and get from point A to point B, and you had to figure out all the ways of getting there. It was an interesting little thing. I only really watched one episode of it. I don't know what happened to the show. I don't even remember the name of it. Nothing about the show matters anymore. But anyway, Dreamer is the book. This is our dear girl, Maya.
Cool. Okay, so she's a true dreamer. Now, what is that?
So the true dreamer is based off of the concept of the charmed ones from Charmed. And the charmed ones were these three sister witches who they were the protectors of the world. But in Charmed, unlike in Dreamer, magic was hidden. Granted, Dreamer doesn't even technically have magic, but we were talking like very, very briefly before about the difference between powers and magic. Like powers are like a bit stronger than magic because magic relies on like stuff as a medium, whereas powers it's just like this thing exists. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, because your magic is like outside energy that you're using for something, and power is just sort of, I guess, already, you can already do it. It just is.
Yeah.
Okay.
With powers, you can control it directly, I'd say. And with magic, you have to use like magical energy as a medium.
Okay. Interesting.
Whereas with powers, it's just like where you can like control the thing directly. Because like if you had like control over light, if I had photokinesis, I could just control the photons directly. Whereas with light magic, you'd first have to control magical energy to control the light.
Right. Okay, cool.
In actual like real life practice, it wouldn't technically matter, but me and my best friend, we tend to put like our characters in battles against each other to like help like test their strength and like see what they can do and stuff like that. And now all of my story universes have magic as sort of like the thing that the characters draw upon. Like Dreamer, we don't use magic. In Dreamer, we just have powers. In Dreamer, we have powers, and in Champions, which is a whip that I'm working on, a work in progress that we'll maybe talk about a bit later if you want. In Champions, we have magic because it's all gods and goddesses. Crystal Waters is power based.
Okay.
So some of them are power based, some of them are magic based. The distinction really truly doesn't matter unless you have like specific universes crossing over or some like the Marvel or DC universes where they coexist.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so if she's like,
but anyway, like
with all of these awesome powers, which I assume are to do with probably mind matter because it's called Dreamer.
Yes and no. We have a wide variety of them.
What are they protecting the world against or from?
Well, Maya's the true dreamer, and as a true dreamer, Maya is the protector of her. Technically, it's only really supposed to be of her species, the Dreamers, and the Dreamers are named that way for their most popular and prominent power, which is called dreaming. And dreaming is the combination of three actual powers. Dreaming is the combination of reality warping, which you've seen with people like Franklin Richards, Scarlet Witch, Mr. Mixer-Pixelix, Mad Jim Jaspers. All of these names will mean something to comic fans.
Oh yeah.
All of these names will mean something to comic fans because I'm also a very huge comic nerd. Dreaming is a combination of control over reality, the ability to manipulate reality directly. I could take this and turn it into an egg.
Okay. It's
different from like controlling like matter and molecules in the sense that it works. I'm trying to find a way to describe this. It's not just manipulating sort of like the matter itself, it's more than that, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I probably like use like a poor example. The basic gist of the power is if you think it, you can do it. With reality warping, you're drinking tea. What kind of tea are you drinking?
Earl Grey.
With reality warping, I could teleport you right now through the television, well, the television screen, through the camera, through my camera and through your camera, without me even being in, we'll say, the same state as you. I can immediately, assuming I've trained my powers up to that point, snap or just think it, and your tea would be supercharged. And you drinking and you taking one sip of it could make you fall asleep immediately or get all the energy in the world and just want to run around and do stuff. Or by you drinking it, you could get a variety of effects from it, whatever I want it to be able to do to you.
So that is super cool and also probably very dangerous if you don't do it right.
Yes, it could. Yes, and that's just honestly the tip of the iceberg with reality. Reality warping. One of the only limits of reality warping is your imagination. It's all about you thinking it, and if you think it, you can do it. So, dreaming is composed of reality warping, which is what I just explained. Fate manipulation, control of their fate, which the dreamers have because they are. So I'm also a huge mythology nerd, mythology buff.
Always fun.
So, yeah. So one of the big inspirations for Dreamer, well, kind of really an inspiration, kind of like a thing that like I really, really wanted to do when I was younger. For Dreamer was Greek mythology. So we have like the three sisters of fate, the Moirai. Well, they're not explicitly the Greek Moirai. They're technically above those, if that makes sense. They're the way I have it in the book, and this isn't really like a thing that's like said, but it's more so kind of like in my headcanon, I guess you could say. Even though I wonder if, like, okay, quick little detour, but like, you know how the term headcanon is like for something that like this happens in your head but not in the actual book.
Right. I have lots of that in my books.
If you're the author, is your headcanon just canon? Or is it not canon because it's not in the book? Like, it's not explicitly said in the book.
That one's hard. I mean, I've got a bunch of things all in the same universe. So they happen different points in history and different parts of this world. So, I mean, I guess everything that I've put onto paper is probably canon. But there are other things that I need to write about that haven't happened yet or don't exist yet, and therefore I would consider that headcanon because it's not yet tangible. I don't know. That
makes sense, and that's actually kind of what I was thinking about with it, because future English teacher here. So forgive me while I talk literary theory.
Yes.
So. Do you know Death of the Author?
Death of the Author. Ooh. I haven't heard that one in a long time, so you're gonna have to remind me of all the details.
Death of the Author is actually one of my favorite literary sort of like theories. I forget exactly what the word is for it. It might be theories, but I don't think it is. It's not like autobiographical theory or something like that. Death of the Author counters Word of God. Like Word of God being, hey, you are the author, you are the creator of this thing. So you are in this sense God, because you made everything. So Word of God is, hey, if you say it, it's just this is just the way it is. Like J.K. Rowling and her Twitter.
That's a whole thing.
Word of God being, hey, if you say something about like this thing, it's just canon. It doesn't matter if it's in the book, it's canon.
Right.
Because you are God and you are exerting your authority over this thing, and no one can dispute that because you are you. You are God. Death of the Author says, and granted, this is a gross oversimplification of it. There's a really cool video that I love on Death of the Author by the YouTuber Lindsay Ellis. Death of the Author, and this is a gross oversimplification of Death of the Author. Lindsay Ellis's video talked about it more in depth, talking about the history and everything. But Death of the Author essentially says the opinions of the author don't matter. If it's not in the text, it does not exist.
Yeah, okay. I'm very familiar with that concept because it came up a lot in my various English classes, but it was never described as death of the author. It just was sort of how my teachers tended to analyze the book.
I see merit to both sides of death of the author and sort of like non-death of the author. Because if the author says something about this work, it can/should count. But for example, if it's something like, and I'll use an example from Dreamer. So Dreamer has gone through a ton of revisions over the now 6 years that I've been writing it.
Okay.
I started it back in 2014 when I was 13 in 9th grade. Well, that's when I started really getting back into it. Technically the idea came to me when I was 10. So this is my baby. This has been a long time coming. In Dreamer, Maya was not technically always Latina, but Maya's been Latina for a while. Rosemary, her best friend, has been Black for a long while, but some people, when they read it, didn't really get that until I explicitly called it out. So in those earlier versions of the book, Maya was Latina, sure, but there weren't enough, maybe, indicators, I guess we should say, of her being Latina or of Rosemary being Black, so it could be like disputed. What if God would say, hey, I say she's Black, so she is Black? The author says, is it explicitly mentioned in the text that she's Black? Are there any indicators that can lead to people saying that she is Black? Is there anything that you yourself as the author have put in this book that says that this girl is Black? If no, your word counts as much as literally anyone else's. You, despite being the author, do not have any special privileges with your word compared to the book.
Sorry. It's just, as an author, I want to be in charge of my books.
I know, right? But at the same time, I also honestly admire the concept because of, for example, J.K. Rowling.
I mean, I totally get because in 100 years, you can't ask an author what they thought or whether this was meant to be that way, because presumably
when the author's alive, it's a bit murkier. But of course, people can just invoke death of the author. If an author like J.K. Rowling, I swear to God, I'm not trying to bring her back up, but she is literally the best example of death of the author.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If an author loses credibility, then the fan base will just invoke death of the author on that author's name instantly. Like, for example, J.K. Rowling with Hermione and Dumbledore, because Hermione is not Black. She's not. Just simple as that. She's not. People can try and dispute it, but she is not. Even if there's that one instance of like brown being said, I don't remember the description. There's also a description of her being described as a panda when she looked through binoculars that had ink around like the eye holes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Her turning pale, her turning red. Because Black people, we blush. Yeah, sure. We do everything that you guys do. but because of our skin color, it's more of just like a light burn under the skin rather than us turning that color.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't like turn white, we get paler and stuff like that. Stuff like that, people can point to the text and say, this directly contradicts you. So you have lost all credibility with regards to this thing. It doesn't matter if you made it, you have lost all credibility to the thing. And part of it is also kind of like, it's understood that the author is the creator of the thing, and technically in a legal sense, they are the owner of it.
Right, yeah.
But there's also kind of an argument to be made for once you publish this thing, and once other people have read it, once it's gone out for public consumption and it's no longer a private endeavor, who really truly owns it? Because everyone makes their own interpretation of it, as like, which is just a thing with like reader response theory, which says that readers take their own interpretation into the book and the book becomes personal to them, because a book about if someone has been through sort of like sexual assault or something really bad, or even just someone who is like Black in and of themselves will relate to a book, or even a non-white protagonist much more heavily than someone who is white. They'll just relate to that character way more, and I have personally experienced that myself with books that I've read and things like that.
I know that reader response theory is a fairly common thing to see when you're trying to draw on the symbolism of some of the pieces. Because at least for literary analysis, when you draw on symbolism, a lot of times the author didn't actually intentionally put that in there. If they did intentionally put that symbolism in there, I'm kind of impressed, because usually they're like, oh, that's cool.
Honestly valid. Yeah. And I've kind of gotten that thing myself, and I'm like, oh, I didn't actually. Also, can I just say that I love how this has turned into literary criticism?
Yeah, it's fun.
I love it. I am a complete book nerd, and I hope that your viewers / listeners will enjoy this. I hope they'll enjoy this. I hope so. And this is actually going to be a little segue back to Dreamer. Dreamer is about my Juanita Isidora Hernandez Lilac, and her dad's Honduran, her mom's Dutch, so she is mixed. But Maya is the true dreamer, and the true dreamer's job is technically to save the dreamers from the dream daemon, Daemon.
Yeah.
And the dream daemon is this man who is in control of the dreamscape, which I call the reverie. He wants all of the dreamers dead, and when he kills them, he absorbs their power.
Ah, okay.
What for? We'll find that out later in the series. But when he kills dreamers, he absorbs their dreaming, which is control over reality, control over fate, which comes from the Morai. Dreamers were created by the Morai to kind of serve as sort of like the weavers and the people who like weave fate of individual universes themselves.
Cool.
Because Dreamer is actually a science fantasy, so it's a combination of sci-fi and fantasy, which always fun. I merge genres with literally all of my books, and because like you can tell already, just because we have multiple universes and everything. So the more I created the Dreamers, who were back in the day called Yfantes, or Yfantes. I'd have to double check the pronunciation. Yfantes.
Probably Yfantes. That'd be my guess. If we're going from Greek, it'd probably be closer to Yfantes. But I could be wrong about that. My Greek it's been a while.
Well, they're called Yfantes, plural Yfantes. singular, with an I with an accent mark.
Mm-hmm.
The more I made the Fantis in order to go and sort of refate for the individual universes, while the more I sat high above them, higher up than the Hyperverse, which is kind of like where we get like, the big like essentially like government
mm-hmm.
of sort of like all of existence.
Uh-huh.
All the universes, all the multiverse branches, the whole of the Megaverse itself, which the Megaverse is literally just a collection of literally every single multiverse out there. Multiverse being a combination of universes, not that. Yeah, that was why the Efantis were made. And the Efantis, on their way down through existence, they had kind of ended up absorbing some dream energy.
Mm-hmm.
And because of their ability to warp reality, it kind of like affected the dream energy that was inside them, to the point where they actually developed the power to manipulate dreams themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things about the Fantis, who are now called colloquially dreamers, one of the big things about them is that they can make their dreams real. And their dreams are destined to happen unless they directly intercept and stop them.
Ah, I see. I feel like that could be slightly problematic if you have a dream about like drowning in chocolate or something.
Yeah. We get into it quite a bit in the world with Maya saying that like when she was younger, she would sometimes, as you do when you are the literal savior of everyone and it comes from your family, worried about demons come and have had tragedy in your family, in your 5 years of existence, have dreams about like demons coming after you and like killing your family. You kind of sort of, as a kid, those things kind of sort of begin to happen.
Yeah.
Like as you're dreaming them.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have control. You don't really have the best control over your powers yet. Which is a bit of a problem. And there's a lot in this world. They have like their own sort of like internal systems of everything.
Right.
And they have a power management. Each government has its own like agency to kind of like, deal with and watch out for these things.
Right.
To help prevent, dream-related casualties and stuff like that, and people from like, taking over the world and all this and all that, and taking over the universe and destroying the universe and all this and all that. Because the limit of reality warping can be as high as multiple multiverses. So it's really, really big.
Oops.
The first true dreamer is actually Joan of Arc. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. The first true dreamer is Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc, she was a Fantis. But then she kind of just like was just like, okay, I'm tired of this, and like fiddled with stuff and ended up basically doing stuff and challenging the daemon, which people are like, oh my god, you did that? You defeated him? Spoiler warning, she actually defeated not him, but an avatar, a lesser version of him. So was gonna come back, and he did come back. But Joan had ended up passing her powers on to her granddaughter. And the armor that she made and everything. She had kind of passed it on. And from there, it just kind of became this thing where the true dreamer comes every other generation. So it skips a generation. Maya's mom isn't the true dreamer, but Maya's grandmother was. The true dreamer is about the best concept that I think I've ever really made, because of the way that like each generation is affected by the last generation. And there's a whole chapter, and this is all throughout the book, where we explore like this and like the effects of it. But every generation has their own individual relationship to sort of like the true dreamer legacy and like their destiny and everything, and what they're supposed to do. And especially when it comes to someone who doesn't have it, like Caitlin, she's affected by it much more differently than Maya or her grandmother Mira is. Or what Maya, as a true dreamer, is supposed to protect the world, well, the universe technically, her universe specifically, because every universe has their own true dreamer. But when Maya was 13, she lost her powers. Her powers got locked off by the Dream Demon somehow locked off and blocked off her powers and ended up making a clone of her.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Problem.
So that's the thing. Maya, for 5 years, Maya didn't have her powers. But when she's 18, she has a dream the day before move-in where she sees her clone, and then from there the dream begins to happen. Normally we think of the clone as like, the evil paragon of evil, right? But Maya's not particularly too sure. So she has to try and figure out a way to get her powers back from her clone, while also figuring out what the deal is with the clone and whether the clone's actually good or not. And it's a bit hard because her mom, Caitlin, sees things differently than her with regards to this. So Maya has to try and figure all of this out while also being a college student.
Yeah, because, college isn't difficult enough.
Yeah. This makes college way too easy. It's a breeze. Dreamer has a lot of Sailor Moon influences. So it was described as a magical girl anime in novel form, which I love. And it also has a ton of Charmed influences. So Charmed's biggest thing was family, and one of Dreamer's biggest things is family and familial relationships and blood and everything.
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it has been absolutely awesome talking with you about literary theory and the multiverse and, all of the nerd things that go on when you're a writer type.
It was nice being here.